It's 3 o'clock. I'm going to start. Thank you and welcome to my lecture recital. Today I will be performing, discussing, and comparing the playability of virtuoso piano repertoire using both the standard piano keyboard size and the ergonomically scaled piano keyboard, ESPK. ESPKs are a customization of the piano keyboard in which the keys are smaller. The most common sizes are 15/16 and 7/8. The one we have available today is a 7/8 of the conventional size. In practical terms, it means that when I have the shape of a seventh here, is what I play an octave in the smaller keyboard. This one is a loan free of charge from the Jonathan Steinbuller Foundation, and I'm immensely grateful for their support. Naturally, the next question is why? Why am I so invested in smaller keyboards? I'm doing this for my PhD. And the answer is quite simple, be honest. I am a small-handed pianist. I don't know if that's a secret, but there you go. And being a small-handed pianist has always meant for me that I was doing some sort of strategies that they, in the piano culture, they are frowned upon. I would rearrange notes, I would consistently omit notes from the score, I would use a special fingering, and I always thought that some technical difficulties were my problems until in 2019, in a lesson with Dr. Ray DeLeo, she told me, Camila, look, I was playing the Coda of Ballada No. 1 of Chopin, and she told me, all the technical challenges of the Coda would be so much easier for you if you had a smaller keyboard. Since that day, I could not stop thinking how my playing would be different and how the playing of other small-handed pianists would also be benefit from this customization. And so I made the focus of my academic studies. Having a small hand in piano culture, in piano playing culture, has always been linked to many research, by many research as the cause of musculoskeletal disorders. To cite a few research and articles, we have Sakai in 2008. I will quote him. He wrote, hand span appears to be one of the important factors in overuse hand problems. In 1998, they Smith Giselings, they wrote, smaller hands lead to more frequent overuse syndromes. And a more recent study in 2015 wrote, small-handed pianists must be aware that they have higher exposure risks for hand injuries while playing the piano. So all this research and many others, they state that the size of the hand is a risk factor for playing-related disease. Isn't it interesting that they state that the size of the piano, of the hand, is the factor and not the size of the keys? Imagine yourself going to a shoe store and saying, can I have those in size 7? They come back, give you a size 10, and say, oh no, I'm sorry, I meant 7. And they go, no, it's one size fits all. So my research is going to try to answer a question to why we are not talking about this, why we're pretending that that's not a problem in the musical industry. And I'm going to be very clear and honest. We are trying to pretend that there's not a problem with gender inequity yet. If we look, the first prize winners of the major piano competitions in the world, and all this I got from their website, and I made the percentage with the help of someone who's better in math, because after he checks, there were a few mistakes here and there, so I don't know if I still get my PhD after this, but anyways, for example, Queen Elizabeth, a total of only 10%. Tchaikovsky, a total of less than 10%. But when we go to Mozart International Piano Competition, the total of women who are making first prize is higher than the males. And the same for Johann Sebastian Bach. And the answer is quite simple. We don't need large stretches for those kind of repertoire. If the idea of a smaller keyboard or an interchangeable keyboard is not new. The first generations of piano keyboards built in the 18th century by Bartolomeo Cristofori was actually manufactured with the option of removing and replacing the keyboard in one piece. And also, the keyboard has changed different size over the years. A research made in 2008 by Sakai, he measured 120 upright pianos, square pianos, virginals, grand pianos, historical instruments, and the results are surprising. The results are that the pianofortes manufacturing from 1784 and 18, the size of them were 181.9 millimeters. The average of octave span of a grand pianos from 1801 to 1825 was 182 millimeters. The average from 1826 to 1850 was 183.8 millimeters. And from 1851 to 1875, the average octave span increased to 187.3 millimeters. And after that, the average octave span remained the same as the conventional size that we have today, which is 188. The increasing size of the piano keyboard results in a very paradoxical problem. As composers from the 19th century, such as Chopin, Liszt, they expanded virtuoso techniques with more octaves, more larger chords, widely spread fingering passage, fortissimo speed, which require larger abduction, which is when your digits go away from the little finger to the thumb. The manufacturers enlarge the key size. For example, Liszt, one of the most famous virtuosic pieces that he ever composed, is the transcendental etude La Campanella. This piece was composed in 1838 and published in around 1840. There are a few people saying 1839, 1840, so around that, which implies that Liszt was actually using a 183.8 size for playing, performing, and compose that piece, which would make the intervals of octaves, ninths, tenths that are so far apart much more playable for any performer and a small-handed pianist as well. The repertoire I will play today are Brahms' Rhapsodies of Opus 79, number 1 in B minor, and number 2 in G minor, Rachmaninoff Prelude, Opus 23, number 6, Rachmaninoff Prelude, Opus 23, number 5, and lastly, Rachmaninoff Prelude, Opus 3, number 2. I define virtuoso repertoire here as solo piano pieces filled with great technical challenge, such as octaves, widely spread chords, fortissimo passage with large finger stretching, and a considerable range of dynamic and speed. Both the Neil Penguin Dictionary and the Harvard Dictionary of Music, they define virtuoso as the celebrated tradition of the instrumentists from the 19th century. But both dictionaries also remembers that there is, this term was used in a pejorative way, implying an absence of musical intelligence disguised in ornaments. The repertoire I chose to play today is far from mere virtuosic display. I chose to start with Brahms' Rhapsodies today because Brahms is the composer who used virtuosic skills such octaves, large chords, dynamics, speeds to intensify the classical tradition. And the classical tradition and Brahms can be understood by his respect by the musical form. Both Rhapsodies Opus 79 are well structured. You can see contrasting moods and themes. The Rhapsody number 1 in B minor displays a ternary form, in which the B section presents a warm and delicate theme in the key of B major, contrasting with the agitation and bravura of the loud chords in A section. The Rhapsody number 2 in G minor is a sonata form. The crossover hand motif of the exposition is used in development, and a mournful B theme in triplets complements the dark character of this piece. I will now perform the set of Brahms' Rhapsodies using the ergonomically scaled piano keyboard. The ease in playability, which I felt and I experienced after I adjust to the new size, was extreme. A side note was that in my mind would be just like a fairy tale. I would sit down with the piano and I would play and I would adjust, but unfortunately it took me much longer. I wrote in my thesis, in one of the chapters of my thesis, that I start practicing the second Rhapsody on the smaller keyboard on the 10th of March, and only on the 25th of March I felt adapted. Of course, I wasn't able to come to uni every day because this is a very busy role. But anyway, it took me 15 good days to get adjusted. Another side note that I think is very important to note is that I was still able to play in the other size with no problems. I wasn't having any sort of, now my octaves are becoming sevenths here. I was not having this type of problems. I think it's a little like when you play a celeste in the orchestra, you just see that the keys are smaller and your brain just goes into the new, that's the new setup that it needs to play. Even before I had the opportunity to play on an ESPK, I knew that the octaves would become easier, and I think that everyone knows that. So I'm going to go over the most important thing that changed in my playability, and I'm going to go ahead and say probably in the playability of any small-handed pianist, is the second finger. And the second finger is because of Brahms, when he writes these types of motifs, when you have an octave and a small note here, which is going to be played with your second finger, another octave, and then another small note that's going to be played with your second finger. When you try to play this on the full-size keyboard, you see yourself with your second finger so far away from the note. While when you are in the ergonomically scaled piano keyboard, you find your hand much closer. And of course, Brahms wrote the entire Rhapsody with this motif. So that was the first Rhapsody was what I felt the most easy in my playability. I want to quote a very good piano pedagogue, Penelope Roskill. She wrote in 2020 a book named The Complete Pianist. And she says about octaves. In playing octaves, we need to grasp any opportunity we might have to reduce tension, minimizing pressure and releasing the stretch. And she implies that we need to, of course, have our wrist higher in between octaves. So going into slide number 8, I have bars 13 and 14 of Brahms' Rhapsody of 79, number 1. How do we release tension when we are stretching our hands to play notes so far that we can't really accomplish, and we still need to lift our wrist to do that piano technique? It feels absolutely impossible. So we have this opportunity to really feel free with our wrist when we adjust and we play in a keyboard that actually fits our hands. In bars 43 to 45 in Rhapsody number 1, the right hand plays a G flat major chord first inversion. And this was a moment that I did perform this Rhapsody before in my life, and on this bar, I was just omitting notes. And it's really hard to find a note to omit here, because either you lose the soprano, or you lose the alto with the quavers that builds tension to the music. But it's quite unplayable for us. There are so many descriptions in so many good books and piano pedagogues about how to avoid tension in piano technique. Many pedagogues suggest that the pianist needs to have a free fall and controlled arm release. And I like when they say, just allow gravity to pull the arm effortless towards the keys. And on slide number 10, when we have from bar 54 to 2, it's impossible for the small hands just effortless allow the gravity because we are trying to play the keys. And we can't really allow the gravity to effortless. But it's a very nice chord, I have to say. So it was, and I was very grateful when I actually sat down and that pianist said, "Oh yes, I can just allow gravity to just effortless move my arms towards the keys." So yes, I can feel what a big hands or an average hands feel when they play on the piano. Moving to the second rhapsody, I would like to discuss about the flexibility and easiness at which I felt in my wrist while lifting to play this slur that's highlighted in blue between bars 8 and 9. Ray and Fit for Piano, she talks about that for doing this type of technique, you need to lift your wrist in a convex shape to release the whole arm. But as small-handed pianist will feel so busy with just trying to get the minor chords that you can't really because you need to play the E minor chord in here. Almost outside the keyboard, if I manage to say. If you want to play the correct notes, you're not going to go in a convex shape because you're never going to play something correctly. Now, another secret of a small-handed pianist is that D major chord, first inversion, for the right hand is impossible for us to play. It's just impossible. This is me trying to play a D major first inversion. And it is not only the D major first inversion chord, it's any chord in which the thumb and the little finger are going to be on a black key, and that the second finger is on a white key. That's going to mess with everything. So E major, C minor, any chord. So we are all the time rearranging, and then it comes the little, oh my God, and am I a real pianist if I can't play all the notes in this chord? We start to doubt ourselves that we're not playing all the notes there. Everyone else is doing it. Cantabile. One strategy that a small-handed pianist like myself we used to cover up our physical inability to connect notes is to use a little bit more of pedal. And then we connect everything with pedal. So on bars 14 to 17 was the first time that I actually could really see my wrist doing a very nice and free gesture to do a cantabile on the top notes. Connected with cantabile topic, every time that a pianist has this type of exertion, when you have a top note in an accompaniment that needs to play in a very delicate way, we just need to leave the top note because otherwise we can't play the accompaniment. So what we do is I'd like now to go and perform Rachmaninoff Preludes, Opus 23, number 6 and number 5. was a Russian composer, pianist, and conductor who was known for the large size of his hands. He could play a 12th, for example. He could play middle C and high G. Even in the ergonomic scale piano keyboard, I'm not going to say that I'm going to reach, but I'm very much closer, right? Much closer. I think it was 3 days ago I was reading an article. The name of this article is The Diagnosis of Arts. And in the beginning, they are talking about some doctors. They implied that he actually had a medical condition. That's why he had such big hands. He died of a specific type of cancer. And when they see photographs of his hands and some videos, and they think that and the type of cancer he died for, that he actually had a condition that made his hands and toes and nose and be bigger. And in this article, another side note that maybe I shouldn't say, but anyways, I found it very interesting, is that when he was told he was touring and giving a very nice tour, playing and performing and teaching, and then he was very sick and he had to go to the hospital and they canceled the tour. And then when they ran so many tests and exams, and then when they got, okay, you have cancer, and when they told him, I'm sorry to break this news, you have cancer, he said, my poor hands, farewell, farewell. I think he knew he had amazing hands, because otherwise, why he would be saying goodbye to the hands he had? So this is in the Diagnosis of Arts. The people from the hospital say that this was his reaction when they break the news that he was dying. So coming back to the size of his hands, Rachmaninoff, large hands, naturally, because he had not very big hands, all his compositions demand that we either have very big hands or we do amazing strategies to accomplish all the voicing that we need, all the octaves that we need to play, the contrapuntal dance texture in his music. Going to the two preludes I just played, the benefits that a small-handed pianist like myself will feel playing the prelude of Opus 23 number 6 by Rachmaninoff will be mainly the possibility of shaping the melody in octaves. So all these octaves here in the right-hand melody are going to become much more playable for the small-handed pianist, because we don't need to connect or to try to do the legato, only matching the sound, which is mostly what you do when you play on the full size. Or you try to. Voicing is a pianist skill which is made easier using the ergonomic scale piano keyboard. Once your hand is not overstretching and you feel that you can actually use your middle fingers to voice, everything becomes much easier. In bars 28, 27 to 30, you can see that this voicing of the middle line melody in semi-clear is becoming much more playable for the small-handed pianist. The Rachmaninoff Prelude, Opus 23, number 5, is without question a music I would never dare to play in this piano keyboard. Not even if someone says $1 million, I would say I can't. I just can't. I need the money though. But I just can't. This piece requires that the pianist have lift the wrist all the time, so you don't become injured with some sort of playing-related disease. It demands so much with big chords. I just want to show how I would try to play this in here. This is bars 17 to 24. It doesn't work. this lowest section of this Rachmaninoff becomes much easier once you have the possibility of using a piano keyboard that fits your hands. The fingering for the left hand is easier. You can swap fingering much easier. You can voice the octaves and chords of the right hand in a much, much nicer way. And it just wants to show what happens with the right hand from bars 20, 35 to 37. I'm all the time playing from outside the keyboard. The last piece of this recital I chose for one particular reason, and I'm playing for one particular person, my 15 years old self. I remember when I first heard this piece and thinking, wow, maybe someday my hand will get to play. Well, my hands didn't, but I'm playing anyways. Thank you. It's clear that now I can just allow gravity to pull my arms and effortless and play the big chords. And the quality of my sound while I play the large chords at bar 45 to 46, it's so different. I can try to play, but it doesn't feel the same thing. I can't really control the release of my arm because 1 second before I just let gravity pull my arms, I need to stretch everywhere. So there's this second of tension that I need to add in my music when I try to play the conventional size of piano keyboard. So if you're asking yourself, great, that's so great. So why is that? It's the first time I heard about this, and why this is not so much more available in the world, right? This is the first one in New Zealand. Is the second in Australasia. There's another one in Melbourne right now. And the answer is because, unfortunately, the market is controlled by men. Is it news? No. Right. So, Steinway, which is an amazing company, they did manufacture customized size in 1920 for Joseph Hoffman. You can read about this in any book. They are going to talk about this amazing Polish-American composer and pianist that he had a smaller piano keyboard. But now Steinway just wants to burn the trend about this. In an interview that A.P. Steinway, the great grandson of the founder of Steinway Songs, he was asked to burn Joseph Hoffman's smaller keyboard. And now if you ask Steinway about this, well, in the 1920s you built for him. They say, no, that's a myth. We have never done that. We have never. And then when I was, but there's an interview in the Wall Street Journal in 1997. They said he was so old. He didn't know what he was talking about. And of course now he passed away, so we can't really, we can only rely on books saying that this actually happened, or in Steinway saying, no, we have never done that. So I know who I believe. In 1997, the Wall Street Journal, they asked someone in the Steinway Hall in Manhattan, and this person said, I don't have time to waste on this inconsequential, ridiculous thought. The idea that someone is trying to tinker with tradition also strikes a dissonant chord. And I thought that would be nice to end with this feeling of how amazing it is. One of the most amazing and most standard company in the world saying this. Yamaha, they stopped receiving orders. They did manufacture also smaller keyboards in 1955. There was a Japanese pedagogue, together with Yamaha, they did a little bit of sales on in Japan, but they were advertising these keyboards as for kids. And I did exchange a few emails with the Yamaha people. And in these emails that I exchanged with them this year, they still refer to this piano as a first step, as if it was a toy piano. As if you don't need for really playing music. You can just grow your hands. However, a shift is actually happening. So we have this here, or we have another one in Melbourne. We have so many around the world that this year is the third edition of the Recital Piano Festival, in which 26 performers from people in Germany, UK, New Zealand will be performing, Australia, United States. We are going to play in customized ESPK pianos, and it's going to be from the 15th to 23rd of July. And it's online. You can watch the performance, or you can go to New York and watch live in the venue over there. And of course, I hope that my research can shine some light in this thing, and that we stop pretending that we can survive only with one size of keyboard, and that this will give so much more playability and probably reduce so many playing-related musculoskeletal disease. I want to say thank you for a few people. First of all, Andre, who helped me a lot, to the Istanbuler Foundation, who loaned free of charge this, to Stephen the Pledge, who really helped me to get this piano in New Zealand. Really, really. Sarah Watkins, thank you so much. Matt Peselke also helped in organizing how we're going to gets the piano to function inside the piano. And of course, David, thank you so much for your support in my research. And now I'm open to questions. Oh, and then I need to show this. There you go. The invented facts.
Okay, thanks for a lovely presentation. I have one silly question. I was wondering if the keyboard size would affect the sound quality.
If the key size, if the size of the keys.
Yeah, would affect the sound quality.
I think it was in March, 15th of April, right? There was the piano technicians. There was a conference here where piano technicians, they actually talked about technically how they made this keyboard be smaller. Because for us, for pianists, we don't even know what happens inside the instrument. We barely know what happens outside, so we don't know. And it was really interesting to see that how they managed to make the keys, because this piano, the original keys of this piano is inside this room here. So this can be just retrofitted. I could just took it. I thought about doing it today, but then I was like, don't do it, because if something happens, how you're going to continue with your recital? And I was so grateful for that afterwards. I didn't do it. So they were talking about that the last octave of the piano, they had to put some extra wood to make sure that it doesn't wear out as it would, because the strings are thicker and everything. So they are going to say that the quality of this is not at its best. And actually, Steinway, they now claim that they are going to build for you a smaller keyboard. However, a big however, one, they charge a handsome amount of money. Like you cannot even ask them to do it. Oh, can you do for my keyboard? You can only buy a new piano, and they will deliver with the small keyboard. And however, it is not as small as you want. So this one here is 6.5 inches, right? This one is 5.5 inches. They say that they can do 6.2. That's how much smaller they can do, because they either they don't have the technology, or they don't really want to troubleshoot how to fix this problem here. They fix the problem adding more, and then the piano is heavy. Stephen the Pledge and Sarah, when we first got the piano here, they were talking about how heavy the keyboard feels. So when you actually press the key, you feel that's heavier. On the other hand, what happens is, although the keyboard's heavier, you can actually release and allow gravity to pull your arms. So you have a good balance, I would say, of heavier than the standard one, but a little bit more ergonomically for us. Yes.
What's been for you in this process in the last year, like the biggest revelation? Apart from the things you anticipated, like you were saying there's been changes in the amount of preparatory time to adjust and develop new muscle and muscle body knowledge. But what's been the big revelation for you that you didn't anticipate so far?
I think that the big revelation for me is that I was not a bad pianist. Is that the instrument was not really helping me. And maybe you're going to, of course, but for me and for many small-handed pianists, we do doubt ourselves. We think, oh no, if I'm doing this, if I'm taking notes, if I'm omitting notes, it means that I'm not like as good as someone else. So that was the big revelation for me, is that I can actually play or whatever. And just yesterday I was having a conversation of, like, what's my next repertoire? I want to play the Rachmaninoff concerto and the Rachmaninoff cello sonata, and I was just like adding repertoire to an imaginary list, you know. So I think that this is the biggest thing, and how much easier it is to play everything. It's really interesting to read the book and see people, oh, just allow gravity, and then like, oh yeah, I can just allow gravity.
So it's connecting different knowledge systems that are there for you.
Sorry,
it's connecting knowledge systems you're aware of.
Yes.
With actual
yes.
body practice.
Yes.
That's liberating.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
So I guess what it's saying is also it's opening up your own potential for interpretation. Would you say that it's also going to add, this has the potential for many different voices to enter? I mean, you look at the gendering of all this, interpretation is something that many other voices can enter into as part of that.
Yes, I would say so. Doing the, of course, you start to think, oh, if I have this keyboard now, I can do this and that. It's going to give more opportunity to many other type of pianists who wouldn't be playing and to play some different genre of repertoire used. I would say that maybe even for people with big hands, like I don't know, Stephen the Flash, I would say you have way bigger hands than mine, that he could play some sort of repertoire here. That would be like someone could like write, like compose for him, because then he could manage like even bigger chords. So I think that it opens a whole new door to a whole new thing to so many people.
And you want to also mention around the other work you're doing that you're about to undertake to your research.
Oh, about the participants. Okay, so on the 3rd of August is the day that I'm going to have the first section of electromyography, surface electromyography, which is a non-invasive quantitative methodology where you have electrodes on your skin to measure muscle activity and fatigue. So on this day, I hope to have more participants. At the moment, I just have one person who signed the consent, and actually it's an assent form, and the parent signed the consent, and I have many people who said, yes, I'm going to take part. They didn't sign yet. I would just like signing anytime sooner. So I have more people saying that they are going to take part. And the criteria is that they are in a certain level of piano playing. So I put a criteria of grade 8. So any student from the University of Auckland would be okay with this criteria. That they have never played on the keyboard before, because I was to look into adjustability. It took me 15 days. Maybe those people are way more brighter than I am, and they are going to get it like in a section. I don't know. I want to look into that topic as well. And there will be 10 sections of 10 weeks for them to practice in this new size, because that's another thing. I'm 36 years old, turned 36, and I've been playing on this keyboard for 31 years. So that fairy tale that I had, that I'm going to just sit down and I'm going to play and it's going to be so great, it's 31 years playing here. So the adjustment was a big deal for me, and I reckon it's going to be chaotic for everybody the first time that they play. And this first time is going to be video recorded, so they can see what's going to happen after 10 weeks. And I also will have a blind panel of professional musicians who are going to listen to the recordings without knowing which one is from playing here and which one's from playing here, and from week 1 and from the week 10, after 10 weeks of practice, to see how much improvement happened. And we are also having a second section for after week 10, playing here, for saying muscle activity. Because I told Sarah about this, is that after starting to practice this, of course, not everything. Some cases, as I told you, I would never dare to play here, that I can't manage to play. Even the octaves and everything, I kind of learned something, like that I could transfer the knowledge from here to there. It is not the same, because I still need to, but I kind of was able to feel a little bit freer in this keyboard after. So yes, that's what's going to happen on my real research project, which starting on the 3rd of August.
Just an observation. I think it's going to be fascinating for your own research on yourself to notice how your technique changes and develops through the course of using a much more comfortable keyboard. I think just the adjustments and your way of playing is going to develop and change. And I think it's going to be really fascinating.
I'm not a pianist. I'll was fascinated by that graph you showed earlier on in your presentation about the increase in the size between the octaves over the years. Why did that happen? Why did that happen in the first place? And why can't piano makers go back to just making a more medium-sized keyboard overall, as opposed to these enormous keyboards that are standard now?
Well, I don't really have an answer like that I read in a book and I can give you and say that's the right answer I got from book. I have my own intuition of why that happened. What I think is after the Industrial Revolution, they start to just have more as an assembly line, and it was easier to have bigger pieces of wood than smaller. This is what I think. Like,
Was it standardisation of units of measurement? Because there was sort of, you know, England had their own standard, France had their own standard, the States still have their own. And I wonder if there was just sort of some sort of aligning of units of measurement.
It's definitely something to pursue.
yeah, that's true. Yes.
It's also an economic consideration.
Yeah.
It's that they're just, it's to go back, you know, they're going to have to just relearn how to make, and it's just the viability of it is just
Yeah, at the moment.
at the moment.
But I mean, in theory, it would be cheaper to make a smaller piano, right?
You would think, you'd think so.
And the market would be bigger, or at least 50/50.
It's just fascinating that you know, we've got so many women who play piano, so many children as well who
Yes,
play
yes.
piano, and yet it's the large one that's still.
Yes,
So,
I think that goes very, it encounters that idea that in the past, in the 19th century, the woman was supposed to play the piano, but to be a good wife, you're supposed to entertain, like people come to your house and then you play the piano. You're not supposed to be on the public sphere being a professional musician. You can see like the letter that Mendelssohn wrote about Fanny Mendelssohn trying to pursue a career as a musician. So I think that it goes to, honestly, I think it's just a question of let's make sure that women don't, like, that the women, they don't get to actually be professional. Let's just make sure. This is what I see. From my side, I can't really see anything apart from that.
Yeah, of course we get a violin, you know, even within a standard violin.
Yes.
There's different sizes, and you know, you can say, oh, I've got to get a slightly smaller or slightly bigger violin.
Absolutely. I should have talked about this, but actually, many years ago, I think 2016, I watched a professional orchestra from Germany, Darmstadt State Symphony Orchestra, and the leader of viola was playing viola like this. All the other violas were like, and he was the only one with a viola, and he was the section leader. I took a picture and made so many like funny and jokes about that. But now looking at what happened and then doing some sort of research is that he actually learned to play viola on the other side, and then he, at some point in his life, he went to a luthier and he asked for a customized viola, and he's like section leader of the Darmstadt State Symphony, and there you go. So this is okay, it's customization, right? So ours is also customization, so pretty much the same. And for me, this customization would be very much when you think about brass instruments, that they have the mouthpiece, and if they have bigger lips, they're going to want one that's bigger for accommodate, or if they have smaller, it would be as if they say, oh, it's one mouthpiece for everybody. You can't really choose a different size. It's just one. So also goes into that idea of having
Standardization versus customization.
Exactly.
That'll be the tension, I think, in the evolution of music.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Yes. I would like to say thank you very much, and also I hope and I know your research will go so gratefully, and hopefully it will change in some way the world, and the companies will change their mind, and music making for women will be more not adaptable, more, what's the word?
Equitable.
Yeah, yes, affordable, because I think it's amazing to feel that you can play pieces which you never thought you could possibly play. So just good luck, and I wish you all the best.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, be brave and
Thank you.
do this.
Okay.